Hi, Julie here with paperbeadcrafts.com, and today I am going to show you a technique that may actually save you on glaze, such as PC Petrifier and Vibrance, when you're glazing your beads the way I do by dipping them, stringing them on strands and dipping them. These beads here were made or glazed using the drips from the hanging strands, and then I just coated them with 2 coats of Vibrance on top of that. And what I basically did is, now to be honest with you, the concept of the bead sheet is not mine, but the way to do it is something I came up with earlier this week. Basically, Dara from I Love Paper Beads is where I got the concept from of gluing tissue paper onto flyers and paper and other stuff. This one here is a food flyer, and this one is just scrap, or actually I recycled a piece of copy paper that I made a mistake on. So the way I did this is I ripped up the tissue paper, which I'll show you in the next step over by the bead drying rack. And then I laid all my tissue paper out on this paper underneath where I hang my beads. And then I just let the beads drip onto them. I shake them off in my little container as much as I can, hang them up, and they're going to drip. So instead of getting something like this, which you might recognize from one of my previous videos, that's all wasted dripping. And it's also a waste of paper towels. And this one also. You might recognize this actually from my glazing beads video 2017, where I had this blue up here in this corner, and I explained that was a Sharpie marker that bled. Look at all that glaze that was wasted. And then I thought, okay, well, I love this idea that Dara had. Why don't I just take it one step further and get the drips from the strands and put them on the paper? And then once these were cut into strips, I rolled them up into beads and then dipped them twice in Vibrance, again making sure that I had one of these underneath to collect the drips. So let me take you over to my bead drying rack and I'll show you how I did it. Here at my bead drying rack, like I had the other day in my paper bead glazing 2017, and here are the beads I just showed you. And, you know, they hung up here. And these are the beads I'm going to glaze today. And these beads are for an upcoming project. So, we'll get to that in just a moment. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm making these bracelets. And that's going to be part of another video. So, with all that, this is what I do to take care of the tray. Okay, so basically what I do is, you know, this is waste. It's no good. So I put that in the trash. Put that one in the trash. Okay, and I've already done this one, and I've done this one, and this one is an old one. This is the one I did by hand, smearing it on. I did not use this method. I just did it this way. This is both PC Petrifier and the Vibrance. So that's what's going on here. Okay, so let's get to it. I'm going to go ahead and grab my recycled copy paper. That's what I'm using for this one. And this time I'm going to put it face down, because when I roll them up, this is not going to show anyway. So I put it face down. This is freezer paper that I put on top of my drip tray, because the drip tray is plastic, and yeah, it does stick. So I just put that down in there so that this won't stick to it, and I lay that down in there. And you can use newsprint if you want, but this is copy paper, and it works just fine. It's a little bit thicker. And so to prepare for this, you want to take some colorful tissue paper. I've got 2 different designs. You can use whatever you want for colored tissue paper. It doesn't really matter. I think this came from Dollar Tree, and I didn't pay for it. This was actually given to me. I think they may or may not. In years past, they would pack some of your breakables in these tissue papers that they would get. And so you got to keep them. They're just too good to throw away. So you go ahead and start ripping them up. And you want to, prepare your tray first. Get all your papers ripped up. And I'm doing this as fast as I can. You don't need to be careful. You just need to rip them up. Okay, so there's those ripped up papers. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rip this one up. Now, if you want to change up your color, you can. I just happen to have these two. But you can use gift wrap type of tissue paper. And Dollar Tree sells, frankly, horrible gift wrap. It's really, really thin. It's just not good for gift wrap, but you can probably use it for this idea. Okay, so there's all my tissue paper. I'm going to set it aside. I'm not putting anything wet down yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay my paper as wherever I want it to be on my sheet. And yes, I'm overlapping the edges a little bit. And you can go willy-nilly all over the place, however you want it to be. I'm going to try to do some sort of a patchwork so that there's a little bit of order to it. Overlap wherever you can. That makes it fun. And flow over the edges, that's okay. Doesn't need to be perfect. Just get it on there. If you want to throw in some other stuff, other scraps of scrapbook paper or anything like that to make it a true collage, go right for it. Doesn't really matter. And you might, if you have a problem with PC Petrifier or your base glaze, you can put on your gloves at this point to get ready. But I have it completely coated, ready to go. And here I go. I'm going to set these aside. And we're going to start stringing these. Okay, and I will explain these beads in another video. Basically, I probably won't show them in this process. In fact, here's a tip that I figured out after I filmed my last beading, glazing video. Is for the very first dip, you can just throw them all in there. It won't matter. You can just throw them in, all of them. Because it doesn't matter. I invert them after each dip, but the first dip, it doesn't matter. And grab my dowel here and stir it in there. This is a tip that I didn't realize that you could do ahead of time. Just stir them in there 20 to 30 seconds. This is only for the first coat, and that's it. You don't want to do it for every coat because you need to make sure that you're inverting them. Okay, that should be enough. And then I start taking them out with my little tweezer things here. And to be effective with the dripping, just lay it on top. One at a time. This is where you want to do one at a time. And if any of your little pieces move on you, go ahead and fix that. And if you're not afraid of getting your fingers wet with the PC Petrifier, you can move them with your fingers. Okay. And one of the tips that I do recommend is that as you do each one, go ahead and lay it on. It won't affect the glaze on the beads themselves, not at all. It's okay to do this. And you're getting more of the drips onto the paper, and you're getting more of the drips off of your beads. So, in fact, if you're not afraid of getting your fingers wet, you can grab a hold of them like this and tap it onto your paper. That works too. And since that one's kind of out of control, let me grab one of my weights here. you don't have to worry about the glaze and the weights. It'll make it to the end eventually. Okay, so I'm going to grab another one. I'm not going to reach in with my fingers. In fact, I just grabbed 2 of them, so here we go. Alright, separate them. They'll be fine. Don't worry, they won't get hurt. You can't hurt these beads. Knock off your... This looks funny, I know. Knock off your glaze. Oh boy. That really looks silly. You could do a little jig too if you wanted to. Alright. You know, as I get more comfortable on the camera, I might start getting silly. A little bit of stuff that makes kids laugh anyway. Kind of corny. Oh, I forgot one. Look at that. Alright, I'm going to beat the thingy again. Hey, you know, it can be a lot of fun. There we go. And, you know, you might have to do several strands of this to make it work. But, just keep banging. Alright. Oh, is that... I got them all. Look at that. And if you wanted to, you can shake out your tool on the paper itself. And then you might cringe at this because this is PC Petrifier. But I don't have a problem with it. In fact, I'm going to get another weight for this one. Alright. But one thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you spread out the glaze. So that way you're actually gluing the paper down to the paper. The tissue paper down to the paper. Okay. So, okay. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And yes, you're going to make mistakes. And yes, there might be a need to fill in small spaces. And when you do your second and third and fourth dips, you can move your strands around all over your bead rack so where it needs the glaze. So this way you're not wasting your glaze, except for the stuff that ends up on your fingers. Okay. All right, so that's it. I just wanted to show you a way of preventing wasting glaze, and this is it. It works, as you can see with this. Well, that was done by hand, but these here, it works good. It really works good. And then you just trim off the edges, and you cut them into strips, and you roll them up, and then you roll them up into your beads, string them, and dip them into vibrance twice. And these are waterproof, guys, because the paper is soaked with the glaze first. And yes, these beads here have 4 coats of the PC Petrifier and 2 coats of vibrance before I cut them apart and rolled the strips. And these are rock hard. They're amazing, actually. So, okay, so an hour has actually gone by, maybe a little bit more. These beads are dry. I'm going to go ahead and dip them one more time just to go over what I do. So, take them down. And at this point, I can remove this because it's no longer wonky. And I move these to the top. Just like this. And I try not to break my bead drying rack. And because these have already been dipped once and now I'm inverting them, because this side was up, now it's this side, I'm just going to dunk that in there. Let it drip as much as I can. And then again, I'm going to beat this. Knock off as much of the glaze as I can. And what I usually actually do is I take them all off at once, do this, and then hang them back up. But the idea is you do need to turn them over. And I'm going to go ahead and flip these over and dip them again. And that one's wet. Let's pull this one. And you break them apart and pull them down so that way they're loose no matter what you do. Then you dip them. Just down and in. You don't need to soak them once they've been dipped once. And then I hit the paper again to make sure that all the drips go where I want them. And then you hang it up. And you do that with all of them, and that's it. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.